What are the creepiest urban legends from your area? We have a chair that's been under shade since the 1960s in our school's boiler room. The janitor swears that a boy got locked down there by these other kids the day before summer break and died from the heat. He claims that the chair moves and that the door handle moves, like he's still there trying to get out. I bet the janitor sleeps in that chair and use that legend to explain the chair. Janitor? We haven't had a janitor at this school for 50 years. Ever since the last one died in a boiler room explosion. The whole Skinwalker Ranch thing is like 5 miles from my house. I would consider myself a healthy skeptic, but stories about them are the ones that really give me the heebie-jeebies. Ever see anything strange? Nah. Pretty middle of nowhere here though, so lots of animals, dead ones included, along with unidentified noises. Can totally see where the myths originated. Some of my field guys, I work oil and gas, say one of our field telecom locations right next to the ranch is haunted though. Spooky shit on camera at night, disturbed tools, weird noises, etc. Last time I was out there I found needles though, so probably just druggies. I live in Romania, and as a kid the most common legend was the black ambulance that would steal kids and harvest their organs, and that kids' bodies were to be found a few days later abandoned on a field with some money for the funeral. Also, in my town our parents would never let us go to the cinema because there was this legend about a man who wound put AIDS-infected needles on the seats. I worked in Romania with a girl from Moldavia somewhere who claimed that a friend of hers growing up was kidnapped and had organs taken. I've always thought it sounded a bit far-fetched. I suppose this legend could be the origin? Or was there actual organ harvesting happening in the early 90s? I think everyone everywhere has a story of someone's organ being taken. My mother told a story of a girl in Spain who partied too hard or something, blacked out and woke up in a bathtub with both her kidneys being taken. There used to be an insane asylum by my house in the 70s. It is probably 5 minutes away from my house if that. But they tore it down in the 90s because it was just a giant eyesore and had a dark history of mistreating patients. There is a cemetery on the property with hundreds of unnamed people who died there. In the early 2000s, Walmart bought the land and wanted to build a Walmart there since you would be able to see it from the highway. They excavated and such, and the day before they were set to start construction a huge landslide happened in the middle of the night that blocked the highway for days. If it would have happened at rush hour tons of people would have died. Ultimately, it was deemed unsafe territory to build on, so it remains empty. Except for all the bike trails through the area. But no one ever rides during nighttime lol. I guess the people who died there didn't want to be chilling underneath a Walmart aisle 10. Not really creepy, but there's one house in my hometown that is said to be haunted. There's a tray with a golden teapot on it, and the tray has scratch marks on it. That tray has been sitting in the same location for years, remaining completely under shade, and still, to this day no one has touched it. Some of my friends insist that it's haunted. There's also an urban legend about how an electrician, or someone with a similar job, fell off of a ladder while setting up one of the lights in the middle school gym. His ghost is said to haunt the gym at night whenever the lights are turned off. That teapot thing reminds me of my childhood home. There's a teddy bear that can't be moved from the house. It used to really creep me out to go up to the attic. One day we found old WW2 blackout blinds, a navy chest and gas masks and turtle shells. Of course now the reasonable explanation of the guy living there before us was in the navy during WW2 and just wanted the teddy kept there as a memento makes sense, but I wonder if over the years it'll evolve into a legend. May have to write a creepy note to accompany it. There's one that I'm actually connected to. There was this friend I had in 3rd grade. He was cool, and we had a lot of the same interests. He always sat with me at lunch and played with me during recess. One day he was acting weird. He said that there were bugs in his brain. I asked him if he was okay, but he never responded. I didn't see him at lunch or recess either. He didn't come to school for 3 days, So I asked the teacher what happened to him, and she just said it's not your business. I never saw him again. Afterwards, other kids in my class started making up bullshit stories about how he ran into the woods and drowned in the lake or got kidnapped by an escaped convict, and as his friend I was obviously very offended by these kids making horror stories out of this guy I really cared about. Now 10 years later, the kids in my town are still perpetuating these myths. I just think it's crazy that this generation of kids who were literally infants when this happened are still talking about it like it's an urban myth. None of them know the true story, and neither do I, but they sure as hell don't know that I knew this kid who they believe these legends about. It sounds like your friend was probably ill, either physically, something like a brain tumor, or mentally. Either way he was probably hospitalized, and there are psych centers for kids. We have 3 mysterious men in a car called the Gordians, yes that's what we call them, along Montana Highway 464. People have told experiences where they have car trouble and 3 men in a car drive up and help them out. Other people talk about headlights that disappear in places where they shouldn't disappear. We also have a Native American in a jean jacket and jeans who materializes in front of cars before they can swerve out of the way. When the driver checks for a victim, nobody is found. Their names are Albert, Anthony, and Arnold. More colloquially known as AAA. This is so dumb. I love it. We had one called Joey the Clown. Nearby is a disused Victorian railway which has been transformed into a 20-ish mile path for people to walk, jog, cycle etc and links different parts of the city, just as the rail line would have. Before that it was just disused and didn't have tarmac or anything. Just mud, grass, and there were no gates in the side doors of the tunnels. The tunnels are really dark in there, and we used to hang around in there when we were kids. We became aware of the urban legend of Joey the Clown, who was a lunatic who ran away from the circus, kidnapped a baby, and hanged it by its feet upside down from one of the pipes above the tunnel right into the path of an oncoming locomotive which he also jumped in front of. Rumors still persist that people have seen Joey's ghost in the tunnels, and if you were brave enough to go in the tunnel at night you would hear him laugh, hear a baby cry, and the sound of the locomotive. My mother uses this to her advantage when I was a kid though, by telling my sisters and I that Joey the Clown preys upon children who wear odd socks and who refuse to wear clean underwear. So of course we'd all be wearing matching socks and make sure we had pristine underwear on when we ventured down to the old railway. This isn't an urban legend, but it might as well be. There is this vending machine in Seattle that is filled with rare invaluable soda cans, many of which are out of production. Nobody knows who stocks the vending machine, and the one time it needed repairs, nobody saw who took it to get repaired. The mystery soda machine disappeared sometime in 2018 and hasn't been seen since, but other than that, yup, it was amazing. I got a damn Canfield's Diet Black Cherry Fudge soda out of it once. There is one in Shoreline. I wonder if it's the same one. It looks the same. Plugged into on 24/7 in front of someone's house. We have little people, like 6 and tall, that live in our forests. They stay well hidden, unless you're all by yourself and vulnerable, then they like to mess with you for fun. They also like to come into your house and take little things. You mean borrow? You mean borrow? They are not borrowers if they take and never return. Little thieving shits more like. Flathead Lake Monster. The Flathead Lake in western Montana is the largest body of fresh water this side of the Great Lakes. 18 miles wide, 26 miles long, 400 plus feet deep. People have seen the FLM breach the surface looking like the back of a serpent type creature. My theory is there are some monstrous 25-foot long sturgeons hiding out down there, but who knows. Ya seemed like the right conditions to let a sturgeon get to that size. There is a large burial ground for people who know too much and are a liability, mostly drug rings, out on a part of the reservation that no police or tribal police have jurisdiction to be able to investigate. Unfortunately I heard about and so did my friends in high school, and we thought it was just a legend. Well, last year I learned it was real. I had a friend who got out the drug ring and showed it to me. Rural Western Maryland. Been researching folklore for our class. We have a few, but here's one of my personal best. Legend of the Beansucker, the story of a man who wanted to scare a couple as they were coming home in a carriage, back in the late 1800s. He stuffed his mouth full of beans, and jumped in front of their carriage. It was said the driver was angry, so he chased the man down the railroad tracks by the path, until the man, the bean guy, ran into an oncoming train. It was said, when they found the body, there was no head. Since then, people say you can hear the beansucker's head rolling around, or find beans on the ground. Maybe not the creepiest, but there is evidence that the train part may have happened around that time, which makes the reality factor even more real. How does stuffing your mouth full of beans make you scarier? Exactly. They all come oozing out when you talk. Like Batman when he gave Scarecrow a taste of his own medicine. There's a small graveyard out the back of Crane Brook that are haunted by the ghost of Sarah Marshall. We and my mates went there one night, didn't see much except we found fingerprints all over the windscreen of the car. We left almost immediately. Well, at least no one will be forgetting Sarah Marshall anytime soon. There's an abandoned mental asylum near where I used to live. People would of course say it is haunted and dare one another to go there at night. But the weird thing is, it draws people in. If you find yourself driving late at night, you might end up driving on the grounds of the asylum out of nowhere. This happened to me and my mom once. Somehow we got off at the wrong exit, several exits from our normal exit, and wound up on the grounds of the asylum. Shouldn't even be possible. There are gates that are supposed to be closed and locked. I remember my mom and I were freaked out, and for a second I thought I saw faces looking out from the windows of the asylum, lights flickering on and off. We managed to find our way out through the main gate again shortly after. Here in Czech Republic we have many urban legends, such as hidden needles in public transport seats which are infected by some illness, or razor blades glued to water slides in water parks. However, there are two stories which really get stuck with me since I was a child. There's this story about Black Ambulance, which you can see during evening or at night. I was told this ambulance kidnaps lonely child just to sell their organs on black market. So yay, I was scared as hell during the night. Second story is from the place I used to live in. For my fellow citizen, Sauta povídky z msta otas na Benesovsku, bohul si nedokalu vzpomenout, jak si ta nehudmenuj. So according to this story, there was a hill many years ago where was built a bit for witches. This is based on true events. Ghost of one of these many witches couldn't leave that place, so it scares other people in the area during night. Frankly, I was panicking every time I had to go through this place. My grandma even told me about some dude who saw this witch, so it was even worse. Anyways, sorry for my English, it is not my native language, and sorry for the length of this story. At a site in the woods where a people were supposedly lynched, there is an indention beneath the hanging tree where the people's feet would lightly drag while hanging. People claim that if you fill the hole in and wait overnight, they say that the swinging feet of those lynched will visibly re-drag marks in the sand. Recently, on a local Facebook group about my and the neighboring village, there have been rumors of a dancing man. Only a couple of people have seen him, but they say he wears an old gas mask and black clothes, and can be found dancing at night on the beach, or can be seen walking the hill in a groovy stride. Also, he disappears when people look away and then look back. It's me. I'm the dancing man. Become a cryptid is part of my bucket list, and I can now officially cross it off. Whoa, it's you? How do you disappear? Just drop to the ground or something? I know the area well. I'm a fast runner and my dark clothes blend into the night. Plus there's a lot of overgrowth that it's pretty easy to hide in. There's an enormous wooden railroad trestle not too far from me. Tracks are still in use, and the legend goes that one day in the 1940s, when the area was super rural, a teenage boy decided to kill himself. As the road passing under the trestle was the only way to access the houses beyond it at that time, he elected to hang himself from the beam directly above the road, so his parents would be forced to see him when they return home. I normally don't believe in this sort of thing, but if you look closely you can still see marks in the timber above the road that looks suspicious, like a rope rubbed against it. Draw your own conclusions. I live in a town in California called Martinez. John Moo's house is there, and people keep saying it's haunted. I cannot even count those cringy exploring haunted house at 3 AM 666 videos that I see on Instagram. Drove through there once late at night and those oil refineries are creepy as hell. In San Antonio there's an urban legend of ghost kids leaving handprints on your car if you park near the train track. A school bus collided with a train back in the 1940s or so, and supposedly, if you leave flour/powder you'll see small handprints. This seems to be a common story across the country. In some instances, if you leave the car in neutral something will start pushing it. There's a road called Spook Hill near me. If you leave your car in neutral at the bottom of the hill, the ghosts will push it up. It actually does happen, but it's an optical illusion. You're actually going downhill, but it visually looks like you're going uphill. I'll have to roughly translate it from Arabic, so bear with me. We call it the caller. It is told that in the middle of the night it calls your name and forces you to follow its voice until you reach a body of water. It then pulls you under, forcing water into every single hole in your body, no matter how small, and of course then drowning you. I think this was made up so kids do go on a swim at night. If anyone is interested, it's originally an Egyptian urban legend. Here's the Arabic name. Hey, it's a thing in India too. In remote villages of West Bengal, they call it Nishi night. Nishidak, the call of night, is a voice that calls your name, and in some variations of the story, knocks on your door at late night or early morning when it's dark. If you answer or open the door you'll enter a trance and follow the voice to a nearby water body, and it will drown you there. It is advised that you don't answer to your name being called or open the door without hearing someone calling or knocking for 3 times at least. It's believed that if you don't answer immediately the evil force loses its power and leaves.